So welcome to day 4 of Good Enough Lent with Kate Bowler and Jessica Richie. Today's reflection is called Shiny Things. There's a wonderful account in our tradition in the biblical book of Exodus about our irresistible pull toward worship of the wrong things. The Israelites have already been rescued from Egypt. They have been miraculously and ceremoniously yanked out of slavery and oppression. They are a people whom God has saved and provided with all the food and water and sustenance they needed, despite much whining on their part. They have been given a series of laws like, "You shall have no other gods before me, and you shall not make for yourself a graven image." The people had been given 2 wonderful leaders, Moses and Aaron, his brother. And Aaron was going to tend to the religious needs of the people while Moses was up on the mountain lingering with God. Now, in the story, we are about to see Aaron do some spiritual improvisation. Moses is up on the mountain receiving the rest of God's laws on Israel's behalf. Meanwhile, the people are getting impatient that Moses is so long in coming down. The Israelites say to Aaron, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who's brought us up out of Egypt, well, we don't know what's happened to him." Aaron told the Israelites to surrender their jewelry, and then he whipped out an iron cast. I'd love to know where that miraculously came from, and smelted everything into a glorious idol. Later, when Aaron explains this to an irate Moses, he uses the most deliciously shoulder-shrugging explanation. He, quote, "threw it into the fire and out came this calf," end quote. How did that happen? It's not simply that the Israelites were wildly impatient and prone to epic forgetfulness. It's not only that they immediately fashioned a golden calf the minute that Moses was too long in coming down. It was their defense. They argued that they were still somehow not violating the first commandment. After all, they did not create an image of a false God. They created a false image of the true God. We are likely to do exactly what the Israelites have done. Not to have a false image of a false God, but a false image of the true God. We take great comfort in our own version of God, perhaps one that is composed of bits of things we already know are good and golden, things we melted into a godlike form. Oh, is that an idol? It looks so familiar, I hardly would have noticed. As Martin Luther famously wrote, "That to which your heart clings and entrusts itself is, I say, really your God." An idol is like a flowering weed. It grows and spreads. Its blooms can fill a whole garden, even creeping over the edge and onto the lawn without any cultivation. You don't even have to try, and it grows to take up every available nutrient in the soil, choking out other, more tender species. If it's lovely to look at, its sprawling tendrils often become too hard to yank out, and why bother? It looks like a garden. It looks just like a garden. There's a book of advice for writers called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, which talks about how it is much easier to pursue a version of something than the real thing. Pressfield says that the biggest obstacle to great writing is the same for great living. It is to substitute a safer, lesser goal for the tough and exciting work we really ought to be doing. The key, says Pressfield, is to ask ourselves what our lives are trying to point to. That is a wonderful and horrible thing to think about. We fall in love with the things that are almost true. We start taking our gold and pouring it into a cast that we can shape with our own hands, one that inspires us and challenges us and challenges us, but is not necessarily given to us by the holy. After all, what is idolatry except beautiful things that do not actually transform us? And Kate and Jessica invite us to reflect on these questions and to take this good enough step. They ask, what do your major life choices point toward? Your relationships, your kids, your career, your hobbies, the places you want to travel. What is the most beautiful thing you can say about your life when you look at the evidence? What is a core truth of your life? The straightest arrow you can imagine finding there. Now ask yourself, is it aimed too low?